Track Wrestling here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the National Wrestling Coaches Convention with Iowa State coach Kevin Dresser. Hot topic this weekend, regional training centers.
Yeah.
Big presentation yesterday. What were the main takeaways for you?
That I think the coaches as a whole are demanding a rule book. I think it's just become too much out there. There's too many people going too many different directions, and to be quite honest, there isn't a rule book. And so anytime there's no rules in place, things can get out of hand, and I think that's probably what's happened is that there's probably half of it's rumor, but the other half of it is probably not rumor, and it just leaves a lot of interpretations, and I think it creates a very uneven playing field, and I know personally, and I hope a lot of the coaches feel this way, and I think they do, is that ultimately we want to try to make as much of an even playing field as possible. Now that'll never ever happen in sports because Alabama football is always going to have more than somebody else is going to have in football, but I think it's our job to try to make it as even as possible, and I think the regional training center interpretations have been so loose, and not by anyone's fault, it's just evolved into that it's time to tighten things up.
What are some of the bullet points maybe you would like to see?
Well, the biggest problem with the regional training centers and where the abuse has come from is getting the prospects in the room. That's the biggest problem, and that's where the coaches are the most frustrated. The stories and the real life situations of prospects, 9th, 10th, 11th graders getting in college rooms before they should get in college rooms. So it does create quite a recruiting issue. And that's probably the main thing that I think needs to get cleaned up.
Would you like to see prospective student athletes taken out of the equation there with that? Or?
We get to see student athletes. I mean, heck, we're all going out on the road tomorrow, or no, wait, Monday. We all get to go out on the road, and we get to see rising juniors. And we got to communicate with kids right after they graduated their sophomore year on June 15th. We don't need to see them any earlier. So yeah, I'm a big-time proponent of getting prospect kids out of the rooms as much as possible, just because there's a lot of issues out there. With 9th and 10th graders, there's health issues of putting a 9th and 10th grader in a college room. There's obviously, like I mentioned, recruiting issues. So, we get to see them pretty darn early, to the point that as a college coach, we're on the road recruiting 2 full years of classes right now. That's plenty in my eyes.
A lot of talk on Friday about Big 12 legislation coming along the lines with this. What's the word there? What has come out there, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think I hope yesterday. And I really even think with USA Wrestling. I think if USA Wrestling would take a hard look at what they've got proposed right now, the changes they've tried to implement to make the regional training centers more likable for everybody. I don't think they're that far away from what the NCAA has in the rule book pertaining to 50-mile sports clubs. And so I think if USA Wrestling looks at it hard, I think they're going to find out that this might be an easier road for them too. If USA Wrestling has to get in the compliance business, number one, they're not set up to get in the compliance business. And number two, their phone's going to ring off the wall. It's going to be out of control. And they're the first to admit that they're not a compliance organization. The NCAA is a compliance organization. So I think the vast majority of college coaches want a compliance factor to this thing. They want to be able to know that there's rules out there and the rules are enforced. Right now we have no enforcement. There's nothing. There's a document out there, and if you don't follow the document, it's on USA Wrestling's website. There's no ramification. It's kind of like putting a speed sign out, or a speed limit sign out there and say 65 is the speed limit, but everybody's driving 120 because you don't get pulled over. That's kind of what's going on right now.
Shifting gears to the Cyclones. Year 3 coming up for you. Big strides in year 2. What are you most pleased with what you guys accomplished in your second season?
Coaches, we like progress. I like the progress we made. I like the attitude of the guys in the room. I think they saw last year that we can compete at the highest level. for being a pretty young team last year. I mean, besides Willie Miklas, we were all pretty much freshmen and sophomores. I think that's the takeaway. The excitement is that, hey, we can compete at this level. And so I see a lot of confidence. I see guys taking ownership at times away from training. Right now, we had some good training. We had some really good training this summer, but the month of August, when we don't see them, we don't touch them, we don't have our hands on them, to me, that's going to be a big indicator to how serious our team is. And I actually have a really good feeling. I think they're going to do a good job. I mean, in terms of weight management, I mean in terms of continuing to train, to look the part, to act the part, you know, everything they've got to do from continuing their training to how they socially maintain themselves is going to be a big indication to how good Iowa State's going to be early on.
Last year, you redshirted David Carr, one of your top recruits that you brought into this point. You're going to see him later this month at the Junior World Championships. What have you enjoyed about coaching him thus far?
David is just such a gregarious, positive, upbeat kid. You know, for a kid that's that good, I've commented before, he's super coachable. You know, he's a really coachable kid. He wants to learn all the time. He's just a kid that you know, that when we have kids that come in for recruiting visits, they love to be around him, and they walk out the door, and the parents walk out the door and go, "Wow, that kid, you know, he really has made an impact on my son in 48 hours." David Carr is just that kind of kid. He's going to do very well someday outside of wrestling whenever he decides to hang it up, just in terms of communications, and if he, you know, he wants to be a broadcaster. He's going to kill it. He's going to do really well there.
What are scraps between David Carr and Brent Metcalf like in the practice room?
Well, David's learning. I mean, David can do really well with Coach Metcalf, and then when things get, you know, like young guy versus old experienced guy, when things start getting difficult, Brent's old man wisdom and old man toughness take over. But it's fun to watch them scrap, because when they scrap, they get after it. I think David's learning that you know, there's all kinds of different styles out there, and in order to be the world champ, in order to be the NCAA champ, you got to beat that stingy style, and you got to use your smarts as well as your athleticism. And not just your athleticism is going to get you by to get the better of a Brent Metcalf. You got to figure out angles, and you got to figure out strategies, and he's starting to figure all that out.
What's it going to take for David Carr to win a world title? Junior world title here.
He just got to keep wrestling. If he goes out and keeps wrestling, nobody can stay with him in the world. You know, I think sometimes he gets, just like we all do when we were young, is you get a lead and you get a little bit comfortable. And there's strategy involved, especially in freestyle, but you got to be maybe a little wiser with your choices and your angles and your shots and your position, because it is easy to give up that quick two. But if he stays offensive and smart offensive, he's going to be hard to beat.
Austin Gomez, one of the most exciting guys in the country to watch. Always, seemingly always on the offense and in high-scoring matches. Right. What will it take for him to raise it up a level and be on that stand this next year? How can he take it up a notch?
Well, Austin trains really hard. He's got to do a really good job outside of the room, just in terms of lifestyle. And you know, Austin likes to eat, and so we got to make sure that he understands that eating smartly and, you know, hanging around your weight will make you feel better, and you'll survive a long grinding season. I think that's the thing probably Austin's takeaway was from year one, that, man, college wrestling is hard, and probably for a lot of people it's hard because it's so darn long. So you got to be on your game from November all the way till March. And if you're on your game all year, you set yourself up really well in March. But if you don't do a good job maintaining your weight over that 4 or 5 months, the season becomes really, really long, and it gets hard at the end. And I think a lot of freshmen experience that, and Austin probably experienced that a little bit, where he maybe just didn't have the pop or the freshness at the end of the year that he wanted to. But with that said, you know, Austin wrestled some great matches at the NCAA tournament. He's just got to learn that you know, being a folk style guy at the Division I is much different than being a freestyle guy who has to wrestle in maybe 2 events and really get up for 2 events. If you want to set yourself up really well at a super tough weight like 133, you got to have a good body of work all year long, and that good body of work with discipline will really set yourself up well for when you get the NCAA tournament. But if you're kind of like this all year long, it makes for you make things harder for you than you need to do at the national tournament. So we're trying to make things as easy as we can for us, and that kind of starts with him. Easy for him at the end of the year as possible. That starts with how he maintains and how August goes for him. August is a big month for Austin Gomez, because I'll tell you what, when that kid gets in the room and you get your hands on him and you get your finger on him and you get your thumb on him, man, he can train. That dude can train. You just got to do a really good job when we're not away from him, when we're not with him, when we're away from him.
Jared Dagan, a guy who in high school, I think 4-timer in Montana, but not super credentialed, I don't think, on the national level coming out. Maybe a little bit unheralded, a little bit. You found him at Virginia Tech, and then he follows you to Iowa State and has a terrific season last year as an All-American. What has enabled him to take it up to that level?
Well, Jared's strength is his ability to compete and his ability to push himself. Jared's not afraid to get tired, and there's not many guys out there in the world that can say that. I mean, he is not afraid to get tired. He cleaned up his technical side of his game this year, and that's why he finished on the podium. If he continues to clean up his technical side, he's got a chance to be a real high finisher, because there's not many guys that'll wrestle as hard as Jared Dagan. I mean, he'll leave it. He leaves it all out there, and you see what happens when you do that.
Sammy Colbert, we've seen glimpses of him in the past where he's had some super high-level performances. What will it take for him to become a little bit more consistent, be one of those upper echelon guys this year?
Well, similar to Austin Gomez, he's got to do a good job when he's away from us, and he's got to also continue to progress in terms of his work ethic in the room. We made good progress this year, we really did, but there's still got to be more. There's still got to be more. We still got to get a little bit more out of him in the room, in the weight room, on the cardio side. But it's definitely, we're really trending in the right direction with Sam, and what a talent, a tremendous wrestler. I mean, we saw some matches this year where, he was a national champ. He just got to get that consistency, and he's got to get that consistency in the room. And, we got to have a good August, and we're not going to see our guys until September. But Sam's got to have a great August.
NCAA championships moving indoors are always indoors, but staying indoors, going to a football stadium, US Bank Stadium. Yeah, thoughts on that?
Well, I like it because it's only 3 hours from Ames, so Cyclones, let's get going. We got to fill it up. We want to sell over 1,000 tickets. I'm a promotions guy, so we're going to be talking about the NCAA tournament a lot. But it's exciting for our athletes to be that close to home. They love it. I've been to US Bank before. What a beautiful venue. I'm sure the NCAA will do a great job getting that venue ready to go. So, we're excited. We hope we have a lot of guys wrestling on Saturday.
You think that's the future? Will we be in dome stadiums with regularity in 10 years?
I think based on the popularity of Division I wrestling, I think they're cheating the fans. I mean, I know the amount of tickets we didn't get this year was very frustrating. So I think the NCAA's got to wake up a little bit and see that an 18,000 seat venue is not going to do it anymore. We need to be in the 20,000 seats, I think, minimum. And I don't know how many places there are like that out there. So I think considering football venues is probably something that this will be an interesting year to see if the fans like it, to see if they feel like they're actually close enough where they got good return on their investment dollars of buying the ticket. It'll be an interesting year. I remember being at it when it was in Cedar Falls way back in the day. I think it was Coach Gable's last year, and I thought it was pretty cool, but I had pretty good seats. So we'll see. I think this year will be interesting.
Thanks, Kevin. Anything else for us?
Nope. Thank you.